Right, Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, or 102a. Rabbi Gimel points out that this drush in its entirety, with respect to not making a bracha, being stealing from both Knesset Yisrael, the Yidden, and the verses, is mentioned in Gemara Brachas, amongst other things there. Okay. For Rabbi gets to the word B'toich Kupa, and then we're Amar Rav Oshia. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the top at the bottom of the page, in the middle of the line, Amar Rav Oshia. Okay, so the Gemara began with the sin of Yeroboam and those that followed. And the way we understood it is those that followed made a mistake of entitlement, that they weren't grateful for what David did for them, which leads to, just generally speaking, a sense of entitlement expressed in their idea of not making a blessing before they enjoy this world, assuming that they earned it, and thus caused strife both between them and Hashem, them and other Jews. And from there we went on to this idea that Rabbi Yana mentioned yesterday, in that, in the circumstance that Hashem makes it, that Jews are prosperous, where they have much gold and silver, that in and of itself presents the challenge of a Jew, God forbid, replacing or creating a new god out of the gold, literally, with the golden calf, and similarly in time of Yeroboam, where Jews were doing well after King Solomon's. King Solomon is well known for a prosperous economy during his era, peace and good economy. So Jews were doing well, and likewise we kind of extrapolated that to this day and age, where we're not making a golden calf, but there's a challenge of forgetting that God is in charge and working and worshiping, God forbid, the almighty dollar, the modern version of gold. Okay, so in that vein, the Gemara now connects kind of the sin of the golden calf and Yeroboam itself, and this time of Yeroboam, in that context. So Amar Rav Oshia says, Ad Yeroboam, until Yeroboam came around, Yisrael, the Jewish people, Yonkim, they were Yonkim means to siphon.
Really, like almost like nursing. Really.
Yeah, to siphon, to derive, to be sustained, to get something. Yeah. So it's a kind of pun on word. Egel echad, from one calf, meaning to say, until the time of Yeroboam, the Jews were suffering from basically one national sin, namely the sin of the golden calf. And every time they were punished for sins that were going on at the time, something of the golden calf was also being, they were getting some retribution for something of the original golden calf. So the golden calf was like you know, they used to have rollover minutes. So it's like a rollover retribution. Every time they sinned and they were punished, something of the golden calf was also paid up in that debt.
Still the case?
The Gemara is going to discuss that momentarily, if it's still the case or not. But Mikan Ve'elech, from that point forward, from Yeroboam going forward, not just they have one, the original golden calf, but Mishnayim V'shloisha Golam, from 2 and 3 golden calves. This is the idols that Yeroboam built in the cities of Beis Kel and what was the cities? Dan and an Ale, right? Beis Kel?
The north and the south of the kingdom.
Yeah, those are the two idols that they made, trying to deter the Jews from going to Yerushalayim to serve temple there. He described it that he was worried that when they get to the temple and they see King Rehoboam, the people would all follow the king in the south, so he had to provide them another god to replace their true belief in Hashem. And in that line we have Amar Rav Yitzchak. Yitzchak says, Ein loch pranis b'al olam. There is no catastrophe that will ever come to this world. She'ein ba echad me'esim ba'arba b'hachra litra shel egel harishin. That doesn't have 1/24th of a liter. Litra is a certain measurement of the original golden calf. This is what I was talking about before, how there's rollover retribution, and that every time there was some calamity that came amongst the Jewish people, some measure of the golden calf's punishment, as it were, was deducted. Shenamar, as the verse reads, God speaks then at the time of the golden calf. V'yoyim pakti pakati alehem chatasam. On the day of our remembrance, I shall remember your sin. Meaning to say, on the day when I remember you, on the day when there's going to be a punishment, then I'm going to have the remembrance of the golden calf. That's to say, there's going to be golden calf punishment will come then too, which connects to something we mentioned in previous Gemaras about that it's a ace mizumenes the pranis. It's a time, an opportune time for calamity. In other words, when there's, we talked about this before, when we're at a time when this is a time that's ripe for calamity, then other calamities, as it were, are combined. So, although the Gemara seems to be speaking in negative terms, but there's a positive side to this, in that, you know, it's like when this happens to many people, but like you go to the dentist, especially a child, and the dentist tells you, look, you have 10 cavities. Here's your choice. Either we come back once a month and we drill your teeth and do another tooth each time, or we'll put you under once and get the whole thing done. Now, most people elect to get the whole thing done once. If they have your mouth hurting you for a whole year straight, have it for one, have it one time, and that's it. So it's a very similar thing here. The Jewish people have to go through a certain cleansing. So instead of God saying, okay, we're going to make you cleanse for who knows how long for the golden calf, and then when that's done, we're going to take care of the next thing, and then the next thing. Every time there's a cleansing anyway, God heaps on cleansing from other things to get more done at one time. Perhaps that's what the Gemara is suggesting here.
Isn't it possible? I'm saying, is it possible that when the Mashiach comes, those who still don't believe in God are going to bow down to Him?
To Hashem?
No, to the Mashiach.
To like the person? I don't think so.
Well, doesn't it say in the future that Hashem will be revealed to
Yeah.
a certain degree that everybody will see
Hashem will be revealed so everybody sees it. So
You can't see Him.
sorry,
No, allegorically to see.
it's not so much allegorically, but it's more this idea we talked about this before. It's more this idea that when you look at the physical world, what you'll see is the divine energy that animates it. Meaning, even not your physical eye will see divine energy, but your physical eye will be able to perceive it.
So after Sinai, and they saw all the things, they still went back to it.
Yeah. What's the expression? Bad old habits die hard.
Not the Levium.
Not the living.
Not the yeah, that's right.
Because they were protected, right?
Wait a second, you're also in that context. You're also Levi.
Yeah, because the Levium weren't
Yeah.
weren't slaves. They
Yeah,
weren't
for sure.
as light as the
Yeah. Okay.
the
Routers.
So Amar B'chinina says that it didn't last forever. Rabbi Yitzchak said that the golden calf and the retribution came every single time there was calamities. Rabbi Chanina puts a cap on it. So this is your question. Does it still go on till today? So from Rabbi Yitzchak it seems like it does. It does still go on till today. But Rabbi Chanina says, La'achar asim v'arba nigva. After 24 generations, it was over. They paid up their debt. Where Pasuk Zeb, this Pasuk came on the scene. All right, did you translate the words?
No, this pasuk was paid off.
Yeah.
Paid off the debt.
Nigba Pasuk Zeb, this thing was paid off.
That would not be the proof. How
Yeah,
it was
the
paid
Pasuk
off.
before that says that God said it'll pay up.
Yeah, it's like
So Shenemar, as the verse reads,
installment plan. They paid
Yeah.
off the installments.
so it only lasted 24 generations as opposed to the way the Yitzchak said it lasts all the way through. This Pasuk is in Yecheskel,
Only 24.
only 24, but it's long gone from now. Okay, there it says, Vayikra ba'azne kol gadol lamer, and a great voice said into my ear, Yecheskel speaking, Karvu pukudei se'ir, people in charge of the city are arriving, V'ish klim mashchese biyodai, each man with the instrument of destruction in his hand. So there's a kind of play on words here, in that the verse literally means, uses the word pekudos, Karvu pekudos, which means the men who are in charge of the city. But pekudos also means the opportune time. The same term used in the verse described before, that when God will remember, when there will be that opportune time for calamity, God will pay retribution for the golden calf. The terminology used is pakuda, b'yom pakti pakadati. And here the verse also uses this idea that the term pakudos, to refer to people who are in charge of the city, But if you read it as in the opportune time, you can say, Karva Pekudei Seir. The opportune time of the city has arrived. As if to say, it's done now. So that's 24 generations after the sin of the golden calf. And that's Rabbi Chanina's view that it's all over.
Would have been around what time in history, in our history?
Yecheskel.
At the time of the Korban Abayas.
Towards the end, before the end of the first temple.
Yeah, just before.
Or at the time.
Tzidkiyahu, the last king, Tzidkiyahu.
Yeah, he's the one who, Yecheskel is the one who has the prophecy of the chariot and also has the prophecy of the third temple.
And destruction of also referring about the destruction of the second temple. It actually happened in his time.
So how do you rationalize if it ends at the time of the first temple and then the temple is destroyed? It shouldn't have been a destruction of the first temple.
No, that paid that.
There are other things in the balance sheet.
At the final payment.
That was the final payment. Was the first
And then
temple?
And then now it's a new slate.
It's kind of a new balance sheet.
New balance sheet.
So it seems like
it fits very well because historically, because we know in the second temple they had others. They didn't have idolatry anymore as a sin.
They had infighting and
now we have today, unfortunately. But in terms of Avodah Zorah, that was removed.
Worship is done.
Because the Chaim made a prayer that the Avodah Zorah should be the same way for the Jewish people, more Yoma. That was done. The other sins we have to deal with.
So
Not idolatry anymore.
Yeah, we talked about before how the new idolatry is the pocket.
Yeah, but it's
the wallet.
Only a metaphorical, not literal.
It's not a literal idolatry.
That's right.
But anyway, Rashi goes through the calculation to get the exact number 24.
Tried to impose idolatry.
Right, but Jews didn't follow.
The Romans, the Greeks more than the Romans.
No,
even in Hanukkah, there were Jews that were
Hellenized.
Hellenized.
The
worship of the human body.
Yeah, for sure.
Not maybe another, but the.
It's not as much idol worship. Idol worship had a very spiritual element to
we're
it.
going to come across more how strong it was.
Yeah, very spiritual element to it. Whereas the Hellenization of the Greeks were much more.
And then social.
It's also much more physical. Yeah. They worshipped nature. They worshipped the earth. They worshipped the
body,
the materialism, body, everything material. They worshipped. Whereas what's the word for it? Polytheism. That predated Greek, like the idol worship was very spiritual in nature, actually. Whereas the Greeks were very, very materialistic. Anyway.
And even the Jews who did idolatry at the time of the Greeks was more political. It's become gracious with the Greeks.
It wasn't just political. It was also cultural.
Cultural, yeah.
It was cultural. It was music and arts.
And then actual idolatry. When Jews did idolatry at the time of the Greeks, they did. It wasn't because they really believed in it. Because of the.
But also, the idolatry there wasn't in the same sense.
Well, they had the statues. They had
like more of an assimilation thing.
Yeah, it's more like a simulation thing, exactly.
Yeah, very much a simulation thing.
See, the irony is, in the time of the first temple, the 10 tribes, they weren't trying to impress the non-Jews. They were living among the Jews themselves, the whole Jewish kingdom. And they still worshipped idolatry. In the case of Greeks, it was more like a simulation intermarriage kind of thing.
So I think we're going to discuss this soon, but during the first temple period, in the times of the prophets, when people were going to idol worship, it was a very strong spiritual pull. Cool. And it gets in line with what we talked about a few times here, how the world, the physical world is in sync with the spiritual world, then spiritually negative forces are actually attractive. Now, in the same way you find physical negative behavior attractive, because it's enjoyable to the physical senses, so spiritual negative forces were attractive to their spiritual senses. They're more spiritual people, and therefore their challenges were spiritual in nature. They were attracted to spiritual negative forces. And the struggle was between the divine spiritual attraction in the temple and the negative spiritual attraction of idol worship, whereas today it's more physical, the physical attraction of the physical world. And our mitzvahs are done in the physical sense, counteracting that. Our mitzvahs are done very physically. Anyway, okay, a few more lines in the Gemara here. This is quite something. It continues with the theme of Yerovam's arrogance, but here it takes it to a level that you wouldn't imagine exists, but it does. So the Gemara quotes the verse in Kings 1, which says, after this thing, whatever this thing is, the Gemara will discuss in a moment, Yerovam still did not return or repent from his wicked way. So my acher, after what? What is this thing that happened? The verse says, after this thing. What thing? What happened? So Amar Rabbi Abba says, it's amazing. After God himself grabbed Yerovam by his clothing, grabbed him by the collar. Grabbed him by the clothing. But God says to him, Chazar bach.
Metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. Metaphorically, obviously.
Yeah.
But God communicates with him directly. and grabs onto his clothing. It says Chazar Bach. There might be some Kabbalistic meaning to what clothing means, and I'll suggest it in a second. So Hashem grabs him on the clothing and says, "Return, Bani va'ata, and you and I, Ben Yishai, and the son of Yishai, meaning David HaMelech, the person your family served for all these years, Nitayel b'Gan Eden, will stroll and have a leisurely good time in Gan Eden, in paradise. I'm promising you the top, just the three of us, me, you, and King David. Return." Amar Loi.
What an offer.
So it's quite an offer, right? So Amar Loi, and imagine this is what Yeroboam asks him. Mi Beroish.
Who's going to be number one?
Who's number one? Ben Yishai, the son of Yishai, King David. Beroish is at the head? Or is he going to be at the head? And if the answer is yes, King David's the head, Loi Beina, not interested.
That means Hashem's answer.
Sorry? Oh, Mi Beroish? Yeah, Ben Yishai Beroish. So Hashem says, Yishai is going to be the end. Says Yeroboam, Yehachi, if that's the case, Loi Beina, I'm not interested. Is that incredible? Hashem himself asks a Yid to do teshuvah, and he's so steeped in his arrogance that even his return to God is on condition that he get the top prize. So this gets to something you were saying. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, every Jew likes to bargain.
Yeah, this is something you were saying yesterday. We're talking about when a person has a personal agenda, then it gets in the way of everything else, and even a spiritual agenda. This is the lofty spiritual agenda. Yishai is saying he wants to be at the top. I'm sorry, Yeroboam saying he wants to be at the top. What does it mean to be at the top? What does it mean to go in Gan Eden?
Atop David.
Yeah, that was the key.
The number one person.
That's the key.
Number one.
Right, but what does it mean to be in
I'm
Gan
not
Eden?
answering to him.
Yeah,
He answers to me.
Right, but what is he asking in Gan
It's
Eden?
like a partnership.
Yeah.
Partners one.
But what? He's going to be answered to who? But what happens in Gan Eden?
Senior partner.
He's not bargaining for a better steak, for a nicer house. He's talking about Gan Eden.
Yeah.
She's talking about who's going to get a higher divine spiritual revelation. And unless he's going to get the highest divine spiritual revelation, I'm out. And not because he's getting the highest. Like you said, who's at a head? In other words, if it's somebody else getting better than me, I can't stand that. I'm on the other side. It's mind-blowing how far the one's arrogance and ego can take somebody.
We have it in recent history.
Oh, sure.
People fighting over who's closest to the eastern wall in the shoals.
Oh, yeah.
The old, not here, but I mean,
Yeah,
people like, I have to be closer to the rabbi than him.
yeah.
I'm a bigger macher. I'm more
Yeah.
spiritually higher than him. Why is he closer to?
Yep.
Not
It's
just-
quite something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so perhaps I mentioned that there could be some Kabbalistic idea, and there is, but perhaps what it means when it says that God grabs him at the clothing. So we know from Tanya that the neshama, there's the neshama itself. Well, there's the essence of the neshama, but then there's the neshama's own personality, which is comprised of intelligence and emotion, Chabad and Chagas, the intellectual system and the emotional system. And then there is the levushim, the garments of the soul. And the garments of the soul is the way in which the soul expresses itself. Thought, speech, and action.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Thought, speech, and action.
What is that?
That's the garments of the soul.
Oh, the garment.
It's the way in which the soul experiences itself. Either experiences itself in thought or communicates with others through speech and action, as opposed to the soul itself, which is its intelligence and its emotion. So perhaps what it means when God says, grabs him by the clothing, God's saying, you want to do tshuva, I'll forgo like your internal system of how you feel and how you don't feel, but at least behave like a mensch. Be a Beinoni, not a tzaddik. In other words, a tzaddik, as described in Tanya, is someone who transforms even the way he feels about God or feels about the physical world to the point that he doesn't even feel like he's interested in, doesn't even have any instinct to do anything selfish because his internal system has been transformed. And Hashem's grabbing him by the clothing as if to say, don't go that far. So maybe you'll still have instincts to do bad things, but if you behave properly in your clothing, in your external experience, just following the code of Jewish law, which doesn't say to change how you feel, it's just to change how you behave, to change how you think, to change how you speak. Even just that, and that is enough to get you to the top place in Gan Eden. And nonetheless,
Well, not the top place.
not top
Not
place.
necessarily the top place.
Near the top.
A great spot.
A great spot.
Not necessarily the top
Not
spot.
top, we wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. But what's interesting also is another thing is, in other words, if God really wants him to do tshuva, why did God mention King David at all? Just say, me and you hang out in Gan Eden. If to mention David, rub it in his face. But I think that's the litmus test of teshuvah. If he's willing to forgo somebody else. If he can't forgo somebody else, then he's not really doing tshuva either.
And the Ahavas Yisrael part too.
Yeah, so
You can't really do tshuva unless you love your fellow Jew.
So it's two things. Even though
Even sacrifice for him, right?
Yeah, so in a way, there's two things God's expecting of him. Number one, his clothing. He should behave like a mensch, behave the way he's supposed to. And number two, have, even if it's not going to transform his whole feelings and everything, but at least the humility to be able to fargin, you say in Yiddish, to be able to, how do you say fargin, to forgo, but it's like to be able to accept that somebody else is also doing well. Just that. And that would take him...
A true bittul.
True bittul. I would take him to get it. But even so, his arrogance led him all the way down that path. It's quite incredible.
There's a lesson.
Yeah. A wonderful day.
On your Zaydi's yard.
I see the yard too.
Yeah, very apropos.
He's definitely...
Dedicate that to him. He was someone like that.
Shai Ibn Menashe was definitely symbolized humility.
Yeah.
There's one thing he definitely was able to forgo other people doing well.
Yeah.
He was happy with other people doing well.
A story about him came to mind this morning because he wasn't the type that was very like he was very just did what he had to do. But I remember, I don't know why I remembered this, I guess because it's the yard side. In Dekari Square it was either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. We at that time we were in Dekari Square, but we had our services for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in
Ernie's and Ellie's.
In Ernie and Ellie's. And the chazan, there was a chazan, Shalik Tzibur leading the beginning of the service, before the sort of what I do now, but I mean, somebody else.
Yeah.
And I was just, trying to follow this. At that time, I probably couldn't follow the services that well. I was just trying to keep up as best as I can. And I noticed there was a bit of a commotion at the front where the leader of the service was. And then I saw the Shliach Tzibor leave the Amud, and he walked by me and he sat down, and he looked very upset. Mm-hmm. And then I saw your Zayda get up, because he would sit right at the front at the wall, like Zayda always sat right at the front. He got up and he sat down next to him, and he was talking to him, and he was trying to calm him or something. And then I learned afterwards the Shliach Tzibor had skipped a page inadvertently. Oh, inadvertently. When he turned the page,
he turned two pages.
He probably wasn't, I don't know, for whatever, he lost his focus. He didn't realize he skipped a page, and someone pointed out, whoa, what happened to? And I don't know what the rule is, but I think at that point you can't continue. You can't, because you've already read a page or two. You can't go back. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, he left, maybe, whatever it is, he left the Amud. And Yozeda sat with him for quite a while. And I don't even know if Yozeda could talk at that time. We were allowed to talk at that time. Just
make him feel comfortable.
To make him feel it's okay. Like, he was so upset, he was practically crying. I think it was like, Yozeda just took the time, stopped davening, for Yozeda to interrupt his davening and on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or whatever it was, just to make sure his fellow Jew was okay and not going to be depressed and upset the whole Yom Tov. It was really a special moment.
Actually,
Thank you.
Very sensitive.
The order's not miyake, but if it's proper to it.
It's probably somebody who said some word that made him feel uncomfortable and got upset, and he went
offended. Yeah, you have to do it obviously in a careful way, for sure.
Yeah,
that's a good trade-off, because
thank you for sharing that.
It's the Raisa, the Tzukah de Zimra, the Rabbanan.
It's a famous story with Alter Rebbe, who left the middle of davening to go chop wood to middle of Yom Kippur to chop wood to heat up soup for a woman who just gave birth.
Yeah, the story is also that story where he goes to Slichas. He goes to exactly early in the morning. What's he doing? And he's buying slichas. No, he's cutting wood for a woman. It's the same principle. Because taking care of a woman is because nefesh, the rice, down to the Rabbana. It's formal.
The point was, the Alter Rebbe could have asked somebody else to do it.
Yeah,
but he wanted to make the point of himself going on Yom Kippur to go help this lady. Yeah. All right, wonderful day, everybody.
Cool.